Namaste and welcome to the, it hasn't started yet, has it?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
but I can see your picture, Maharaj.
Yes, but not with my hands folded, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Good morning. This is the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. ॐ सर्वजीवपापनाशकारणं भवेश्वरं स्वीकृतं च गर्भवास देहपाशमीदृशम् यापितं स्वलीलया च येन दिव्यजीवनम् यापितं स्वलीलया च येन दिव्यजीवनम् तन्नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्णमीश्वरम् ॐ श्री विवेकानन्दारि सच्चिष्य सुपूजिताय श्री शारदा देव्या विरतसेविताय श्री रामकृष्ण परमहंसाय अवतार वरिष्ठाय च ते नमः। ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना। So if things look a little different, that's because I am live streaming from the laptop computer, not from our usual system, however, in the usual location. We're having our sound system redone, and so that is in process right now, and therefore we have had to make do with a momentary situation. So we will continue with our Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class, where we last left off, and that was April 22nd, 1883, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And in this edition, and most editions, it is page 215. The beginning in the English Gospel, again, the Bengali Gospel is differently divided into chapters, but in the English edition, this is chapter 10, The Master with the Brahmo Devotees, Part 2. And we're near the bottom of page 250. In fact, we're at the bottom, the very last sentence on page 215. So here, the chapter has already begun, and Sri Ramakrishna has come to the house of Beni Madhav Pal's, his garden house, in Sinti near Calcutta. And this was the occasion of the semi-annual Brahmo festival. As you know, Sri Ramakrishna was very close to the Brahmo devotees, to many of them. He used to go to some of their festivals and celebrations, sometimes to their services. And so this was the semi-annual festival that was being held at Beni Madhav Pal's garden house. So he had been talking, there were a number of Brahmo devotees who were gathered on this occasion. And so Sri Ramakrishna had been talking to them about how to live in the world, how to do one's duties, perform one's responsibilities in the world, and yet direct the mind towards God, to come towards God in devotion. So he had said that, let's see, where did it go? To the end of, Those who have not yet come to the end of their enjoyments should not renounce the world. He was asked about renunciation, and he had said, in what we already covered, that those who have not yet come to the end of enjoyments should not renounce the world. And so a Brahmo devotee now asks, what is the meaning of the end of enjoyment? Excuse me. Master, I mean the enjoyment of woman and gold, Kamini Kanchan. It is risky to put a typhoid patient in a room where pitchers of water and jugs of pickled tamarind are kept. Most people don't feel any longing for God unless they have once passed through the experience of wealth, name, fame, creature comforts, and the like. That is to say, unless they have seen through these enjoyments. So this was something that Sri Ramakrishna often said, that one couldn't prematurely renounce the world, that doing so was like pulling the scab off of a wound which had not yet healed. It does no good, it just forms another scab. So one has to come to the end of enjoyment before renouncing the world. That doesn't mean that one renounces the world by becoming completely free from enjoyment, but it means that there is a time when one is ready to renounce the world, and before that one is not ready. Swami Ashokananda, the great Swami Ashokananda, used to say that if a person finds that when one is not confronted with objects of temptation, the mind is calm and doesn't hanker after them, even over long periods. Being removed from objects of temptation, the mind doesn't hanker after those objects of enjoyment. That is a very good sign for the renunciation of the world. But if one, say, goes on a long retreat and remains on a long retreat and finds that the mind is hankering after the things that one has left behind, then that's a sign that no, the end of enjoyment has not yet come. So Sri Ramakrishna says that most people don't feel a longing for the divine unless they've come to the end. Sri Ramakrishna also used to say in other contexts in this same subject that in the game of Parcheesi, and I think it's the same in the game of Ludo, I think the two games are similar if I remember correctly, that one cannot take one's piece home, back to the center of the board, home, unless one has been around the whole board. First one has to circle the whole board before one can come back to the home position, and then move freely around the board as they like. And so he would say that until we've been through all kinds of experiences, the mind won't rest satisfied. So first we have to go through many different experiences of life in this and previous lifetimes before the mind becomes satisfied and is ready to try to give up enjoyment. So then the Brahmo devotee asks, who is really bad, man or woman? Now that's a strange question. Who is bad, man or woman? Is a man worse than woman? Is a woman worse than man? That's certainly not a modern question. So the master says, as there are women endowed with Vidya Shakti, so also there are women with Avidya Shakti. A woman endowed with spiritual attributes leads a man towards God, but a woman who is the embodiment of delusion makes him forget God and drowns him in the ocean of worldliness. Excuse me. I'll take 2 doses. I found the solution to this problem, but I couldn't do it this morning because we had workers here. And that is, if I chant loudly for 15 minutes before the class, then my throat is in good shape. It warms it up as a singer has to warm up their throat. My throat becomes cleared. Swapna is saying that there's no movement, and that's what I'm finding too. There's no movement, just a still image of me on the...
That's okay. Just tell them
We can write it out, but that's okay.
Okay, I'll just go ahead because again, it says I'm live, I'm using the camera, but it won't, it's not giving a moving image.
Yeah, I wrote to them, Maharaj.
You wrote to them, okay, good, good. Oh, I see, yes, it is being done on laptop. Yes, so I'm sorry, but you were stuck with a still image today, but I'll go ahead and give the class anyway, because at least the sound is coming okay. And remember that this is all because we're having a new system being put in yesterday and today. And so by Sunday, we will be using the new system, and that should go very well. So just bear with us today. So again, the Master said in answer to that question, who is really bad, man or woman? And let me preface, since I already started the Master's answer, let me preface it now, saying that he answers in terms of woman. Now, that does not mean that he's saying that woman is bad, not man. No. He's talking about woman because he's speaking to an all-male audience. And so he's not even answering the question, who is bad, man or woman? He's saying that as far as you go, you, the men in this audience go, for you, there are some women who will help you towards God. There are some women that will take you away from God. So he's just giving them what they need to know. Because the question is ridiculous. Who is bad, man or woman? That's a stupid question. As there are women endowed with Vidya Shakti, so also there are women with Avidya Shakti. Vidya Shakti, of course, means the power of knowledge. The Shakti, the divine power of knowledge and wisdom. Avidya Shakti, the divine power of delusion, the deluding power. A woman endowed with spiritual attributes leads a man to God, that is Avidya Shakti. But a woman who is the embodiment of delusion, Avidya Shakti, makes him forget God and drowns him in the ocean of worldliness. This universe is created by the Mahamaya of God. Mahamaya contains both Vidya Maya, the illusion of knowledge, and Avidya Maya, the illusion of ignorance. Through the help of Vidya Maya, one cultivates such virtues as the taste for holy company, knowledge, devotion, love, and renunciation. Avidya Maya consists of the 5 elements and the objects of the 5 senses: form, flavor, smell, touch, and sound. These make one forget God. So the universe is created by Mahamaya, the Mahamaya of God, the creative power of God. So again, this is assuming the idea. Of course, this is Advaita Vedanta. It's not even Shakta Advaita. It's just plain old Advaita Vedanta. That there is the divine being, and then there is Mahamaya. The divine being is pure consciousness, ever blissful, ever aware, but the Mahamaya is the Shakti which brings about manifestation. So Mahamaya contains both Vidya Maya, the illusion of knowledge, and Avidya Maya, the illusion of ignorance. That you see in the Chandi, where in the Chandi, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, what is samstita? That's not coming to me right now. If I thought about it for a moment, I could come back to it, but I'm not going to spend the time trying to do it. Vidya rupena samstita, namastasye, 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 namo namah. Or moha rupena samstita, or actually it's bhranti rupena samstita, namastasye, 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 namo namah. It's a very strange at first, a very strange verse in the Chandi that Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Bhranti Rupena. That Shakti, that divine power, which exists in all beings as the power of delusion, to that Divine Mother I offer my salutations again and again. So I'm saluting the Divine Mother in the form of delusion in all beings. She who is wisdom in all beings, she who is understanding in all beings, she who is compassion, Dayarupena, with all divine qualities, but she who also is Bhranti Rupena, the delusive power of Shakti. And so in Hinduism, the idea is, and especially in both Advaita and in Shakta Advaita, or Shaiva Advaita as well, any form of Advaita, the idea is that if there's one reality, and only one reality, and everything here is a manifestation of that reality, then everything that we experience has come from that, including happiness and misery, joy and sorrow, good and evil. All of it comes from God. All of it comes from God. There's not a good God and a bad God called the devil. That makes no philosophical sense. It makes common sense. It seems to be commonsensical to think that good things come from God and bad things come from the devil, but it makes no philosophical sense, because then God has become no God, because God is compromised by an opposing force. And so even in Christian theology, where they recognize that you can't have an opposing force to God unless God has permitted it, they say that God has permitted the devil to do what he does, that it has to be with God's permission or it couldn't happen. And so in Vedanta, we don't even posit a force of evil. We have the unitary reality, the unitary Shakti, Mahamaya, out of which this universe has come. But if you have a universe which is manifestation, then manifestation means coming out of that which is one into the many. And when you come into the many, then you get all of the pairs of dualities, all of the pairs of duality. If you have heat, you have cold. If you have right, you have left. If you have up, you have down. If you have good, you have bad. If you have wisdom, you have ignorance. If you have kindness, you have cruelty. That you can't, as Sri Ramakrishna will say, you can't know one without the other. So let me continue with what Sri Ramakrishna says. But in the rest of this paragraph that we read, that through Vidyamaya, the power of wisdom, the power of knowledge of the Divine Mother, one cultivates such virtues as the taste for holy company, knowledge, devotion, love, and renunciation. But through avidyamaya, the power of delusion, one becomes attached to the objects of the senses. The senses experience the outer world, and there they find happiness and misery. But they like happiness, or the mind, through the senses, likes happiness. And so we go after that. We run from misery and we run after happiness, but in that we are caught. That's the source of our bondage. Brahmo devotee. If the power of avidya is the cause of ignorance, then why has God created it? That's a natural question. That if the power of avidya is the cause of ignorance, why would God, if God is all good, if God is all loving, why would God create the power of delusion, the master? That is his play, or it could be her play. The glory of light cannot be appreciated without darkness. Happiness cannot be understood without misery. Knowledge of good is possible because of knowledge of evil. It's because we know evil that we can know good. Think about it. If everything were one thing, good, good would lose its meaning. There would be no meaning to good. And then there would be no choice, no moral choices to make between good and evil. And so we would be stuck where we are. It's because of the possibility of mistakes, because of the possibility of error, because of the possibility of sin, because of the possibility of doing wrong things, bad things, that I also have the freedom to move upward. I can learn from my experience the suffering that is entailed by choosing delusion over wisdom, that I begin to wake up. and see that, no, this is not what I want. If there's no choice, then we're just caught in a limbo. We remain where we are. It's because here in this world of karma kshetra, that's why this world is valued above all other worlds except for Brahmaloka. This world is valued over even the heavenly worlds, excluding again Brahmaloka, because in the heavenly worlds, things are so positive and so pleasant that we don't want to move from there. It's because here we have pleasure and pain. And if anything, we certainly have more pain than we do pleasure. That we're not satisfied with our position. Eventually we wake up and say, no, I don't want this anymore. I don't want it. I want to get out. And then we move towards the highest. So as Swami Vivekananda said, the people living in heavenly worlds, again, aside from Brahmaloka, just remember that, I'm not talking about Brahmaloka. The people in the heavenly realms, they are selfish because there they are enjoying themselves. And because they're in a higher world, they could help us, but they don't because they're lost in their own enjoyments. It's like rich people here, people who are very rich and who use their money to buy freedom from problems. Then what do they care about poor people? What do they care? Yes, some do, but many don't care for poor people at all. They may cast some coins to poor people just to make themselves feel good. But you can see it in the political system. You see it right now working out in American politics and politics around the world. That the rich have become the controllers of political systems around the world. And they don't want the resources of the country to go towards the poor. They think that we earned our money, even if they inherited all of it, in the case of many, and even if they worked for it, they certainly got many advantages along the way from friends and relatives and so forth. But they think that we worked for it. Other people, if they want to be wealthy like me, let them work for it. We shouldn't help them. In fact, that's one of the reasons now why in this country the Congress cannot come to an agreement to help people who are suffering right now financially, people who have lost their work. Because they say they're afraid if they help them, then they won't go out and look for work. But there are no jobs. There are no jobs to look for. And so it's a ridiculous statement. And yet it comes from utter selfishness. So again, the Swami Vivekananda said, and the general Hindu tradition has said, Shankaracharya says, that the people living in these higher worlds are selfish. And so it's this world where we have the pairs of opposites more or less equally balanced. As I said, sometimes it seems like suffering is more than pleasure, but they're more or less evenly balanced between good and bad, happiness and misery and so forth, that we can make choices because we see both of them equally and see that eventually we see that I don't even want happiness in the ordinary sense because it's connected to misery. I want something which is higher, that is spiritual bliss, which has no reaction. So that is his play. The glory of light cannot be appreciated without darkness. Happiness cannot be understood without misery. Knowledge of good is possible because of knowledge of evil. Further, he goes on, the mango grows and ripens on account of the covering skin. You throw away the skin when the mango is fully ripe and ready to be eaten. It is possible for a man to attain gradually to the knowledge of Brahman because of the covering of skin of Maya. Maya, in its aspects of vidya and avidya, may be likened to the skin of the mango. Both are necessary. If you take an unripe mango, quite unripe, and pull the skin off, then what do you get? The mango stops developing and it just rots there itself. It doesn't turn into a sweet and luscious mango. And so the skin is necessary. And so it's a wonderful analogy when you think about it. At first it doesn't, the aptness of the analogy is not evident. But this whole world in which we live is like a skin. What is a loka? A loka means a world, a realm. We are in this loka, the bhu loka. The realm of this world that we experience now is called Bhuloka, the world of this earth. It doesn't mean just this planet, it means this whole physical universe. This world is like a skin that we are living in, and it is made out of Vidya Shakti and Avidya Shakti, the powers of Vidya Shakti and Avidya Shakti, the power of knowledge and the power of delusion. And so it's this environment in which we are wrapped that allows us to ripen and come to the realization of God. So then the Brahmo devotee, we don't know if it's the same Brahmo devotee, but all of these could be different Brahmo devotees. That's not specified and we don't need to know. But some Brahmo devotees asks, "Sir, is it good to worship God with form, an image of the deity made of clay?" So Sri Ramakrishna the fact that he was God is proven by the fact that he suffered all of these questions so patiently. Only God could have been so patient with the same question over and over and over again. Everyone coming to him and the same people asking the same question over and over again also. So that's proof of his divine nature, that he was that patient with such questions. How many times he was asked about God with form and without form, and which one was better. Is it okay to worship images? And of course, as all of you would know, the Brahmo Samaj was opposed to image worship, and so it was natural for them to ask. But again, Sri Ramakrishna must have been asked hundreds and hundreds of times this same question about the evil of, or is image worship evil? Is it bad? And of course, the Brahmo position was that it was bad. They had to take a vow that they wouldn't bow before images. And so that was one of the reasons why Swami Vivekananda, Narendra, after he came to Sri Ramakrishna, it took several years before he would bow to Mother Kali, because he had taken a vow, he had promised the Brahmo Samaj on joining that he would not bow before images. And once Swamiji took a decision, or Narendra even, before he became Swamiji, once he took a decision, then it was extremely difficult to push him from that. That was not because he was stubborn. It was because the strength of his mind, that I have made a promise that I want to do this, and so I want to do it. And he made the promise because he had thought through it and saw that how can God exist in a clay image? The very idea is ridiculous. It was because with the Christian missionaries and with Islam, both Islam much earlier, 800 years earlier, and then Christianity recently coming into India, that this doubt about images came into India. Before that, there was the understanding that it was all over the world. All over the world, people have used images from ancient times. As Swami Vivekananda said, no one has ever thought that a stick or a stone was God. No one has been so foolish, no human being has been so foolish to think that a stick or a stone is God, or that God is a stick or a stone. What the mind does when it worships an image, whether the society is culturally speaking primitive, from a technological standpoint primitive, or technologically advanced civilization, people worship an image because the image focuses the mind. And the belief is that the power of the divine can manifest within the image. In fact, in the philosophy of Sri Ramanujacharya, the great philosopher of devotion and of qualified monism, Vishishtadvaita, he says that there is a particular manifestation of God that takes place in the image. That I forget, Archisman or something like that, that he calls it, but a particular manifestation of God manifests within the image when we worship it and adore it properly. And so nobody has ever worshipped a stick or a stone, thinking that that was God. No, they think that God has become present within the stick or the stone because of the symbolic construction of the object of worship, the symbolic significance of the object of worship. But In Abrahamic traditions, not understanding that, they were in general against symbolism. Yes, they also have symbolism, like the Kaaba and Makkah and shrine and different types of shrines. And in Christianity, there are images and so forth, but they don't consider that idol worship. But in Hinduism, as in traditions around the world, it was believed that a symbolic representation, if properly worshipped, manifests a particular presence of the divine being. So, sir, is it good to worship God with form, an image of the deity made of clay? Master, you do not accept God with form, meaning because you are a Brahmo, you do not accept God with form. That is all right. The image is not meant for you. For you, it is good to deepen your feelings towards your own ideal. From the worshippers of the personal God, you should learn their yearning. For instance, Sri Krishna's attraction for Radha. You should learn from the worshippers of the personal God their love for their chosen ideal. When the believers in the personal God worship the images of Kali and Durga, with what feeling they cry from the depths of their souls, Mother, oh Mother, how much they love the deity. You should accept that feeling. You don't have to accept the image. So here you see Sri Ramakrishna's respect for all different viewpoints in the spiritual life, all different standpoints, which was typical of him. And so he says that, yes, the worship of the formless God, that which you have been taught to do, that's fine. There's no problem with that. But think of the intense longing that those who worship God with form have towards the images of God, and imitate that longing. That is, internalize the longing. If you don't want the form, leave the form. But think of the longing that they have. Why did he say that? Because thinking of the formless God, it doesn't leave much for the mind to hold on to. Yes, there are plenty of people who became saints in the Sufi tradition, in the Christian tradition, in the Jewish tradition, who became saints by worshiping the formless God. But one has to admit, it's just a psychological fact, that it's much more difficult to hold on to the idea of the formless God than it is to think of God with form. And so Sri Ramakrishna calls to the mind of the devotee the example of those who worship the image of Kali or Durga, and how they sit, kneel, prostrate themselves in front of the image, calling for the Divine Mother. How the devotee sits, stands, dances, prostrates in front of the images of Radha and Krishna, trying to identify with the love of Radha for Krishna. So he says, internalize that longing. And if you don't want the form, then leave the form, but internalize the longing. And so he points to people who worship form, God with form, because there you see it more. It's not impossible, and it's not completely absent from those who worship God without form, but those who worship God with form, it's much more prevalent, much more visible. Brahmo devotee. How does one cultivate the spirit of dispassion? Why don't all attain to it? So, of course, Sri Ramakrishna was always talking about the need for dispassion. And it wasn't just Sri Ramakrishna. That is something that goes back to the beginning of the Hindu tradition. Dispassion was something which was always recognized as the heart of the religious impulse. It was considered to be the very essence of spiritual practice, was to be detached from the things of the world, and detachment comes from the spirit of dispassion. Dispassion means I don't care for these things. I remember Swami Swahananda was at a certain period a number of years ago, but it was late in his life. It's interesting to see when you've been with a spiritual teacher for many years, you see that they also go through periods when they're thinking about certain things and certain ideas come foremost in their mind during a certain period. So there was a period I remember late in his life, 3, 4, 5 years before the end of his life, where he said that to lead a monastic life, a time has to come, and even to lead a spiritual life, but he was talking in the context of monastic life. He said a time has to come when the mind just says, I don't want those things. I'm not interested in those things. Yes, the biological desires may be there, the biological urges may be there, but part of the mind has to come to the point where it says, I don't care for these things. I don't want to go in that direction. That's a very good sign when that comes. That is dispassion. How does one cultivate the spirit of dispassion? Master, dispassion is not possible unless there is satiety through enjoyment. You can easily cajole a small child with candies or toys, but after eating the candies and finishing its play, it cries, I want to go to mother. Unless you take a child to its mother, it will throw away the toy and scream at the top of its voice. So what a wonderful analogy, that dispassion is not possible until there is satiety through enjoyment. And so that also he used to say in this same context that we've been reading this morning, that until the mind has finished with enjoyment, it won't give it up. And so the Hindu tradition says that the way beyond that, when the mind still wants enjoyment, in spite of another part of your mind saying, no, I want to go towards God, I don't want this, is to enjoy the things that you have the strong urge to enjoy, but enjoy them with an increasing sense of dispassion. That is, to watch yourself as you're enjoying them. If you have a passion for rasagolas, and you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to, or you're afraid of high blood sugar and things, but you just can't get over the desire for rasagolas. When you eat one, then just while you're eating it, just watch yourself and say, so this is a rasagola. This is what I was longing for so much. I know it creates acidity in the stomach. It raises my blood sugar. I'm gaining weight. And it's not really all that good. It's a very strange thing, but it's a fact. That if in the midst of enjoying enjoyments, whatever the enjoyment is, however intense the enjoyment is, if in the midst of it, you just step back and watch what is actually happening, you see that there's not that much to it. Enjoyment looks so wonderful because we are completely involved in it. Because there's the urge, and then there's the satisfaction of the urge, and we jump into it wholeheartedly. But if you just step back and say, it's just a sensation, it's just a sensation, and you try to feel that, of course, not just saying it, but it's a feeling that, oh, this is just a sensation. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Then the urge doesn't go away just with that, but you begin to get a sense of dispassion. And so the idea in the Hindu tradition was always that if you enjoy the world, but do it with a sense of morality and a sense of self-control, then eventually that itself will lead you to the path of dispassion. The pravritti marga, that is the life of engagement with the world and enjoyment of the world, if you do that from a standpoint of dharma, and if you do that from the standpoint of detachment in the midst of enjoyment, then you'll find that it begins to lead you towards the divine. So, and then he continues in the paragraph, giving the example which he often used of a child. That a child wants toys and candy, and it won't be satisfied until you give it toys and candy. But once it's had its fill, it's been playing with its toys, it's eaten all the candy it wants, then it turns its attention to wanting its mother. And then you try to distract it from its going to its mother by giving more toys and more candy, and the child won't accept it. That no, I don't want this anymore. I've had enough. I want mommy. And so that is this situation we have to come to, where we have had enough of the world, where we don't want the world anymore, and we want to run towards God. So the look on the purpose of enjoying the world, when you have the urge to enjoy the world, you're not ready yet for the renunciation of the world, look on the path of enjoyment as a way to satisfy the mind and heart so that the mind will eventually want to go towards God. It's true, as it said in the Mahabharata, that fire is never extinguished by pouring ghee into the fire, and so desire is never satisfied by pouring enjoyment into the fire of desire. But that is true. So you never come to a point where you are completely satisfied, where the urge itself goes away, but you can come to the point where you realize that this is not really what I want. The urge is still there, the hunger is still there, but there's no more joy in it. And so in spite of the urges, the habits and all of that, now I want to go in a different direction. So then the narrator says, the members of the Brahmo Samaj are opposed to the traditional guru system of Orthodox Hinduism, and therefore the Brahmo devotee asked the master about it. Brahmo, is spiritual knowledge impossible without a guru? Master, Satchidananda alone is the guru. If a man in the form of a guru awakens spiritual consciousness in you, then know for certain that it is God the Absolute who has assumed that human form for your sake. The guru is like a companion who leads you by the hand. After the realization of God, one loses the distinction between the guru and the disciple. That creates a very difficult situation. There, the guru and the disciple do not see each other. That's a quotation. That creates a very difficult situation. There, the guru and disciple do not, well, it doesn't say where that quotation is from. It was for this reason that Janaka said to Shukadeva, give me my teacher's fee first, if you want me to initiate you into the knowledge of Brahman. For the distinction between the teacher and the disciple ceases to exist after the disciple attains to Brahman. The relationship between them remains as long as the disciple does not see God. So that's a very beautiful incident where Shukadeva comes to King Janaka for knowledge, because Shukadeva was born perfected. But it's said that without a teacher, one's knowledge is never complete. And so he went to Janaka to get teachings from a guru so that his knowledge would be perfected. And so Janaka tells him, first give me the teacher's fee, because once I have given you the teaching, then where is teacher, where is disciple? So I want the money first, or I want the cows first, whatever the payment, whatever form the payment took. And so that is considered to be a joke. It's not meant to say that Janaka was greedy. It's meant to illustrate the point that the teacher and disciple become one in the infinite reality. You know, the incident in Holy Mother's life, where Swamiji came to Holy Mother and told her that he was seeking to merge himself in the divine. And Holy Mother said, well, just don't forget me. Don't forget me. As she said jokingly and with a chuckle, don't forget me. And Swamiji said, that wisdom which does not respect the guru, on what shall it stand? Meaning that what kind of wisdom is that which allows one to forget the guru? And so then Swamiji left. And then Mother told others who were around her, remaining around her, that it is true that a state comes where guru and disciple mean nothing anymore, that there's only the non-dual reality of Brahman. Where is teacher, where is disciple? And so that comes. So Sri Ramakrishna here answers the Brahmo's question by saying that Satchidananda, that is Brahman, that is the divine. And actually it would be the God here, rather than the absolute Brahman. God is the Guru. So Sri Ramakrishna always used to say that always remember that the Guru is God. So the human Guru who gives you initiation, who gives you teaching and so forth, it's God working through the teacher that is doing the teaching, that is transmitting the power, transmitting wisdom. Why did he say that? I think the main reason was because there's a tendency to become attached to the personality of the teacher. And that you see so prevalent in Hinduism today. In fact, it's something which has been so overdone that in many traditions in Hinduism today, the teacher becomes the value and the disciples are there just to glorify the teacher. Whereas the true guru wants the illumination of the disciple. The true guru doesn't want disciples. The true guru wants to help others to come to the same level that he or she enjoys, the same union with God that they enjoy. That's the wish of the true guru. In fact, Swami Bhashyananji used to tell us in my early days in the monastery, he said that the true guru wants the disciple to become much greater than the guru himself. The true guru doesn't feel any jealousy towards the student, wants them to rise higher than he has been able to attain. And so, again, by saying that Satchidananda is the Guru, first of all, he said it because it's true. That's why Sri Ramakrishna said anything. But secondly, he said it because there is an overemphasis on the human personality of the teacher. And that was an antidote to that tendency. So he says that there's God who has assumed a human form to lead you by the hand back to the divine. And so it's God who takes the form of the Guru to lead you. So my Guru, when I took initiation at Bellarmat from Swami Vireshwaranandaji Maharaj, he said very specifically, always remember that the Guru is Sri Ramakrishna. I'm just the channel through which Sri Ramakrishna's power has come to you. So he told me that at the beginning of meditation to picture him, Swami Vireshwaranji, as my Guru, seated on my head for a few moments, to picture him. That's the seat of the Guru. That's why in India, in traditional society in India, you never touch someone on the top of the head because that belongs to the Guru. Also in Bengali, there's a delightful saying, which in English means, don't sit on my head. You say to somebody when they're trying to boss you around, you say, don't sit on my head. That means, do you think you're my Guru, sitting on my head, directing me around? So don't sit on my head. They also have the expression, don't eat my head, but that's a same thing, but a different image. But don't sit on my head means don't try to be my Guru, because this is the seat of the Guru. And so anyway, Swami Vireshwaranji said clearly that to remember that the Guru is Sri Ramakrishna. Now we've come to the dusk, and so we'll stop here because this is a good stopping place. There's a break in the narration, a break in time in the narration. They're still at Beni Madhav Paul's house, but it's become evening time now. And so we'll begin here on page 217 next time. And next time, we should have the new equipment working. So hopefully that will work from now on without difficulty. So now I can see the comments, and there are no questions that I can see. Pranams and good mornings and such. So my greetings to everybody. And again, I apologize for the fact that there was just a still picture, but there wasn't much as far as action happening here anyway. So it was not, by not seeing me live, you weren't missing much at all. So let me give announcements, and then I'll give a closing prayer. And if in the meantime a question comes up on screen, I'll answer that. So for announcements, on Sunday, the talk at 11 o'clock, live streamed, will be on the law of karma, part of the new series on basic concepts of Vedanta. So last time, the first in the series was What is Dharma? So Sunday it will be What is Karma? A related concept. And then on Tuesday, we'll continue with the Bhagavad Gita study at 7:30 in the evening, live streamed. And then next Thursday, we will continue this class. And so the classes and lectures will continue, hopefully without interruption, from now until the end of July. And then August, we will take a break as we normally do. And let me start mentioning now, because people will start asking, so I might as well start mentioning now. That Durga Puja this year will, of course, be different from our normal Durga Pujas because of the pandemic. We don't expect the pandemic to miraculously disappear before Durga Puja time in the fall. And so we will not be having a big gathering here for Durga Puja. We will have the Durga Puja. Swami Kripamoyananda from Toronto wants to come and do the puja, even in the midst of the pandemic, if it's safe to travel. If he can't come and do the puja, then I will do the puja. But we're hoping, and he also wants very much to come. He stated his wish to come. And so we're very happy for that. And so we're hoping that circumstances will allow him to fly here to do the puja. But instead of having a gathering here, there'll be no tent. The puja will be here in the shrine, in the image, but in the shrine. And it will be live streamed. And we will have only the volunteers necessary to serve the needs of the puja. And then we will have a time when people can drive up and take a box full of prasad after the puja. So anyway, that's what we're planning now, assuming that we are still in the midst of the pandemic. It's hard to imagine that we will not be when Durga Puja comes in the fall. So with that, let me again salute all of you. Thank you all for your greetings and the comments that I see. And I'll give a closing chant. Om Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Dhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namama.